Yo, what is going on, guys? J.Yumeko here, and welcome back to some more Crimson Gray, Dusk, and Dawn. So, I think last time we left off, I believe that was when we finally had that speaker come over, and, you know, she was like, she wasn't really all that special, but, yeah, you know, it kind of went by and seemed to pass without any kind of trouble, luckily. So, we're gonna go ahead and continue where we left off. Alright, so this is indeed the right save. I just had to make sure real quick. So, let's get into it. After the incident, Lizzie spent a while sorting through her remaining thoughts. She had completely filled up one notebook, so she started a second and took it with her to boring classes. Math wasn't boring, but she did find herself running her fingers over the edge of the notebook as she worked. Later, for now, she would finish the requirement. Lizzie didn't mind math. It was straightforward, free of judgments. Though she didn't understand the professor's talk about its elegance and beauty, it didn't seem incomprehensible to her. He was alright for a non-John person. After this class, she floated across campus to return home. That annoying couple tried to engage her in conversation again, but she was able to make polite small talk without committing to anything and keep on her way without wasting too much time. Then she arrived home and found John looking at her notebook. Her focus condensed down to a single point, flickering over everything. His posture, his eyes, the exact set of his mouth, the speed at which he looked up toward her. Once, such a thing would have been terrifying. It still made her scared that she might have gone too far this time, added doubt to his mind and ruined their relationship. And he did have a concerned look on his face, so there would be no simple, easy solution. Lizzie, are these things that you couldn't tell me?
What? No, not at all.
Okay, I do believe you. Have you been keeping notebooks like these as long as we've been together? She squirmed a little at that, her desire to smooth things over with him and make him happy, wearing with her desire to be completely honest with him. I think it's meant to say warring, not wearing.
I had these books a long time ago, but no, I only started again recently. That's the other one, other than the new one I just started.
Did something happen to make you more stressed? Is it something I've done? There was real pain in his eyes, and Lizzie hated herself for a brief moment. She'd caused him more pain, just as she'd sworn to herself that she would never do again. But her John never rushed to judgment, and he was strong, even if he was often sad and she longed to protect him. The relationship had been through more intense things. This wouldn't be the end. Lizzie sat carefully down opposite him.
It definitely isn't anything you did, John, and it isn't anything specific. I've just been a little anxious lately. I was worried that the speech might be more of a problem.
I can see that. He kept leafing through the notebook, leaving Lizzie to squirm uncomfortably. It represented her true thoughts, but some of them felt a little awkward under his gaze, and she couldn't tell what he was thinking. The fact ate her up inside until she couldn't hold it back anymore.
You don't hate me, right? Nothing in the notebook scares you?
John looked up at her in astonishment. A moment later, he moved forward to embrace her, and though that was wonderful, it was his honest surprise at her question that meant the most. She had just been paranoid. There had been no need to fear. Oh, Lizzie, of course I wouldn't hate you. I'm just sad that you were stressed and felt like you couldn't tell me. He wrapped an arm around her and pulled her so they sat side by side, then pulled the notebook onto his lap. When I read these, I mostly just see you. This is who you are, and I can feel your love for me on every page. Turning the page to one of her drawings of killing Smith, his lips twitched in a bit of a smile. These are, I don't know, cute. I've seen you murderous, Lizzie, and this is different. Playful. If this helps you release your feelings, I think it's healthy.
Oh, John, I should have known you would say that.
I'm not perfect, but I'm always here and I want to understand you. Which is why I have to ask, is it really nothing? Is there a reason you've been more stressed lately? Is it things like the girl in your psych class? Lizzie sighed and leaned against his chest, considering. It was a difficult question, not just because she had to think about the best answer would be, but also because she wasn't entirely certain herself. In her mind, her thoughts all flowed together. Speaking with him made them feel clearer, but it wasn't always easy. I don't know what this Q stuff is. I'm gonna just throw it down there, I guess. Let's see. Reassure him that it wasn't his fault. Ask him to help with dealing with stressors. Explain the thoughts that went into the notebook. Yeah, I mean, I think that we're both kind of being honest with each other here. So I feel like it's probably best that, we be honest with him back, right? Maybe I'm going a completely wrong direction with this. I don't necessarily want to ask him with help, because I think that we're doing pretty good with it on our own. But yeah, let's explain the thoughts that went into the notebook.
You mentioned that terrible girl from psych class. All the awful things she said about us.
I'm sorry if I'm messing up her voice. Lizzie flipped to the page after that event had occurred. Pages, actually. She had forgotten how much she had written after that, though now it was crystal clear to her.
After it happened, I felt everything. I hate her, John. I still wish I could just get rid of her.
But you won't, right?
No. Writing it down, it captures what I'm feeling somehow. When I look over it again, I remember all the emotions, but there's some distance now. They're not as strong inside me.
I think I get that. Maybe that's a healthy thing, though I do worry that sometimes you get yourself more worked up writing out your thoughts.
But it doesn't have to be writing, John. I get the same effect from talking to you, and it's better that way, not just because I'm talking to you, but because you always have new thoughts and interesting things to say, and so sometimes I think about things differently.
I'm glad to hear that. I'm always here to talk, Lizzie.
I know. It's wonderful. But I don't have to share everything, do I? Sometimes what I'm thinking is just silly and doesn't matter. I don't want to waste your time.
He considered that very seriously, then pulled her a little closer with a smile. You can tell me anything at all, Lizzie, but don't feel obligated. Unless you don't have a working brain, everyone has tons of minor thoughts. They just pass through your mind. They don't matter unless you focus on them. I mean, I have a lot of little dumb thoughts that there's no point sharing.
That's not true. I'd love to see every single thought you ever think.
I believe you. But since that's not the world we live in, we can just talk to each other, okay? She eagerly nodded and pressed herself against him even closer. She was right to talk to him. John always had good things to say. But as warm as things were between them, Lizzie felt a bit of hesitance. When she looked at his face, she saw something shift and realized that there was something less pleasant he wanted to bring up. Had something in the notebook upset him? Her heart began hammering in her chest. There is one thing we need to talk about, though. I don't like... this page, for example. Lizzie blinked in surprise as she scanned it quickly. It was a page of dense writing where she talked about him, largely about her love for him and many other things. What could be amiss there? Do you always write pronouns for me with a capital letter?
Of course, John. You're not like any other boy. You're the only person for me.
I'm glad you love me, but I don't know about this. I'm not sure I'm comfortable with it.
What? Why not?
She stared at him, hiding the true dismay from her face. Inside, she was panicking. Usually John was so calm and steady. She loved understanding more about him. When she actually felt confused, it always terrified her, forced her to wonder if she was somehow drifting away from him forever. I know how intensely you feel things, but this just feels like a little much. I want you to be my partner, Lizzie. I don't want you to worship me.
But John deserves it. You're wonderful and I love you with my whole heart.
I know that, but since I love you too, I have to be honest with you. This worries me a little bit. This capitalized version of me, is that really me? I'm almost afraid all this is for someone else that represents me, but isn't me in truth.
No, it's nothing like that at all.
She clutched him to her, his head against her chest while she gripped one hand in his hair. But through her dismay, she began to understand. The thought upset her a little, and the idea that she might be worshipping some false form of him was terrifying, but she could understand it. John was still her John.
If I ever just refer to you like any other boy, it doesn't feel right. Like I'm saying they're the same as you, and I would never portray you like that, John.
Lizzie, I think I can understand that a little, but can you understand me too?
I do, John. I do.
She stopped gripping him, so tightly, and let him pull back slightly. They stared into each other's eyes for a little while and both smiled. Nothing that had been said changed their love for each other, and they both knew it. Lizzie leaned forward to kiss him gently. John was being too humble, but she wouldn't argue over that with him. She understood why he was upset, and she didn't mean to suggest anything like that, certainly not to him, and now she needed to avoid suggesting it to herself. Maybe she could accomplish the same thing another way. It was only her fear that was betraying him that made her feel that way. If she had no fear, if she loved him even more utterly and totally than she ever had before, then it wouldn't matter if she capitalized the word or not. Though she wasn't there yet, Lizzie felt peaceful enough to quiet her thoughts and just enjoy kissing him for a while. Oh, kissing him for a while. And kissing him. When they finished, John pulled back and smiled gently at her. Well, this has been quite a conversation. If you want to take a break, I understand. But if you want to keep talking, I'm here for you.
All I want is for you to hold me a little longer, okay?
Of course. He held her like that for a long time. Even afterward, when they got their textbooks and began reading, he stayed close, letting her rest against him so they were always touching. By the time they were ready to go to bed, Lizzie no longer felt nervous about him discovering her notebooks, but she also had a feeling that she wouldn't need them anymore. Yeah, I mean, who knows? If that is the case, if we do stop needing to rely on the notebooks, then that's definitely a step forward, I suppose. Life improved after that conversation. Lizzie overflowed with so much positive energy that she was constantly visiting John for extra kisses and showering affection over him. His reaction was more subtle, but she could feel that it had made a difference to him. Though Lizzie wrote in her notebook, occasionally, she didn't take it with her anymore. I didn't feel too much need for it. In fact, when Aaron invited them to a party with his friends, Lizzie felt so free of stress that she didn't mind them going. To her surprise, the energy overflowed so much that she even enjoyed the party a little. She kept an eye on John at all times, noting his position. He was speaking with a mixed group, casual, but not so casual that she worried about him. Since he was fine, she didn't mind spending some time with others. Aaron's friends were usually smart and thoughtful, if a little too passionate about irrelevant things for her liking. At the moment, she was talking to a girl named Rose. She was always hanging out with Aaron, and they acted as if they might be dating, though Lizzie also had a strong intuition that wasn't the case. It didn't matter to her, so she didn't pursue it. What mattered was that Rose showed no interest in John, and she didn't like how judgmental their psychology class was either.
No alcohol at all, huh? Not judging. I was just wondering if it was a personal commitment or something.
Liz was drinking water from her cup. Though she hadn't thought about it, she knew the exact reason. Becoming intoxicated reduced her ability to enjoy John's presence, and slightly decreased her combat potential. Thus was to be avoided at all costs.
It's just not my taste. That's cool. Honestly, some drinks taste so shitty, I wonder if people really like it, or if society just convinced everyone that they need to like it because it's refined or whatever. I hadn't thought about it like that before. Society convinces us of all kinds of things. Like, who decided weddings should be these obscenely elaborate performances? And wearing white is just a vestige of an absurd older custom. I was hoping to wear white for our wedding.
Normally, Lizzie would have followed the tone of the conversation and not offered any contradiction, since that would just lead to annoyances. One reason Rose was acceptable was that she didn't get offended when people disagreed with her, which meant Lizzie didn't have to waste energy on such things.
It's 100% fine if that's what you want. I just think some people only stumble into it because that's what society expects. But you're about the last person I'd expect to be that way, Lizzie. Really? Yeah, it's pretty obvious you don't care about what other people think. I admire that. Oh, thank you.
Lizzie gave her a smile that wasn't faked, one of the few real smiles she'd given to anyone other than him. In the old days, it would have never happened, but being together with John was so wonderful, she felt like she had an excess of happiness, enough to share it with people who were acceptable company when he wasn't there even. Their conversation didn't continue for too long after that, though, because several of Rose's other friends showed up. She didn't try to press Lizzie to join them, so Lizzie was soon alone again. That was fine with her, though she did begin to ponder if she could collect John and leave. The company didn't seem to have worn him down yet, so perhaps they could stay a little longer. While Lizzie considered that, someone else ambled up beside her. Enjoying yourself, Lizzie?
Sure, thanks for inviting us.
No problem. I'm glad to hear it. You two are hard to read.
Really?
Well, you seem to understand each other on a deeper level, and it's nice to see, honestly. I wish I had a relationship that close. Of course, I don't have one at all right now.
Oh, I thought you and Rose...
Aaron stopped for a full second, giving her a bizarre expression. He narrowed his eyes as if uncertain she was being serious. Lizzie, do you really not know I'm gay? And he had been laughing and talking with John earlier, and she remembered that he had slapped John on the back. Had his hand lingered too long? And not only was he single, but he had just said that thing about wanting a relationship like theirs. Oh no. Oh no. Oh my god. No way, bro. No way. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay.
No, I hadn't noticed.
You have that look in your eyes. Damn, Lizzie, if you were anyone else, I'd almost be offended.
Oh, I'm just upset I didn't notice. I hope you find a man you love and you two get married.
Okay. I'm not trying to have a chip on my shoulder. It's just, the Midwest is a pretty conservative place.
I mean it, though.
It took a supreme effort of will for Lizzie to finish the conversation without giving the wrong impression. Such a thing would have been impossible for her, as she was 3 years ago, but thanks to John, she could do a better job of looking outside herself. Though it didn't touch anything within her, she could intellectually understand what Aaron was saying to her. People disapproving of him was very similar to people who might disapprove of her, so her reaction didn't need to be faked. Though he was sharper than most, she didn't think Aaron sensed any of the turmoil inside her. When he finally left, though, she was relieved. How had she missed something so important? Maybe Aaron was a good person, but most weren't. Lizzie had thought she could focus on nothing but their relationship with John, yet now she realized that her focus had given her blind spots. There were other consequences too. Lizzie presumed that John knew and was paying more attention to such things. She'd been acting so close to Rose earlier in the party. Had some part of him seen it and worried she might be interested in anyone other than him? She didn't fear that John would feel jealous. That wasn't his nature. But he might find some way to doubt his self-worth, maybe wondering if he wasn't enough for her, or something else equally absurd. At his best, he would understand it was false, but if he was depressed... Lizzie realized that instead of taking a drink, he was chewing on the rim of her cup. She was chewing on the rim of her cup so hard that she tasted plastic. Better than her finger, since she was out in public, but still a sign that she needed to pull back and reconsider. Slipping out as soon as she could, Lizzie headed back home, trying to integrate the new information. She had thought that the social understandings she had developed of the years growing up were more than enough for her to navigate any social interaction, but plainly, she was too narrowly focused on herself and John. That was where her attention should be, of course, but her anxiety was creeping upward again, and wouldn't stop until she felt confident in her analytical abilities again. That night, Lizzie decided not to write anything in her notebook. Instead, she just nestled up against John and held him, which he gladly reciprocated. It didn't take too long for her to fall asleep after that. The days passed freely enough, and they drifted closer to the end of the year. No threat materialized, but not much changed either. Lizzie was happy for each precious day, though, and clung closer to John. Things were easier now. She only wrote in her notebook occasionally, and often showed him what she'd written. Classes remained tolerable, and she didn't have any problems with obnoxious classmates or other people. Despite all the attention surrounding the speeches and the potential overhaul of the FDCA, everything just stalled in committees. Aaron and a few others kept campaigning, but interest overall died down. There had been a little tension surrounding Aaron and his group, with John wanting to be involved more. Though Lizzie tried her best to hide her anxieties, he still noticed that she was uncomfortable when they were around others, and so, wonderful person that he was willing to withdraw. So they'd spent much of their time together, which was bliss. It could work out that way forever, couldn't it? John was an introvert anyway, and she could provide everything he might possibly need. That would be ideal, but Lizzie wasn't certain. It was unfortunately impossible for them to be together every second of the day, Despite her best efforts, she was not perfect. Maybe it would be better to develop some kind of secondary defenses, but that would mean giving him up to others temporarily and to other unaccepted risks. Lizzie pondered everything as she chopped up the vegetables for that day's meal, enjoying the knife work as she went. John was casually reading on the couch and smiled when he felt her gaze. This was bliss. Ooh, should we stop it there? We'll keep going. I think we're only like 20 minutes in or so. Oops. Unfortunately, a moment later, someone pounded on the door. Yo, I won't interrupt you, lovebirds, but you have to turn on the news. If he said that, it must be something If he said that, it must be something significant. Lizzie wasn't sure exactly what they had said, but John had spoken to Erin about needing more private space, covering for her, of course, which was wonderful, though Lizzie felt slightly uncomfortable about the whole thing. Excuse me. John had managed to set everything up smoothly. Erin was already moving on, leaving them to glance at one another. After a pause, John got up and flipped through channels until he got to the one they wanted. Earth's rampages in American history. We have just received a report that one of the students in critical care has unfortunately passed away, bringing the total to 11 dead and 2 wounded. Lizzie moved to the couch beside John in a flash, eyes fixed on the television even though she wasn't completely certain why. The news was filled with reports of murders, of course, but the ratio immediately caught her attention. John glanced over to her with a thoughtful look. Why would Erin call us about this in particular?
The facts of the incidents are still coming in. One of the most basic facts must be relevant.
That's a good point. Maybe... it's scrolling to the bottom now. I recognize that name. It's a town with a major Koitek factory, just like their hometown. He didn't need to say. Distracted by the exact reports of the violence, Lizzie had not noticed that fact. She had known the name in any case. It made her heart warm to think that the two of them complemented one another, but she was still in a state of rigid alertness. With the lull in updates, the news program was bringing on guests. There was a Koitek representative, which was incredibly suspicious, even though he was only making a statement of condolences. After that, an academic was brought on. He was introduced as an expert on violent killings, which immediately attracted her interest. After pointless introductory questions, things got more interesting. Until the police decide to release direct evidence, is there anything else we can determine about the crime? What's noticeable is how very few were injured compared to those killings, regardless of the weapon used. That's an unusual statistic. And what does that tell us? It might indicate that it was a crime of passion. The individuals killed were targeted specifically, not randomly. Even those hospitalized were severely injured after all. But what could cause a student to go on such a rampage? Well, emotions are always strong in high school. No, that wasn't right. The death-to-injury ratio had caught her attention as well, and the expert had identified it too, but he was wrong about that. Lizzie didn't want to jump to conclusions, but this is horrible. Do you think it could... Breaking news! The police have released video footage captured during the tragedy to the media. Children and sensitive viewers may not want to watch the following clip. Neither of them blinked. The news switched to a grainy footage from a security camera on an empty hallway, for a few moments still. Then, a student began crawling across the floor, leaving a trail of blood. Broken arm. Cut to the intestines designed to cause pain instead of death. She couldn't see the student's eyes, but she was sure there was animal fear in them. He was panicking, just trying to get away. A girl appeared on camera. She moved casually but surprisingly fast, swinging a baseball bat idly in one hand. The student gave a mangled squawk and tried to crawl faster. It didn't matter. The girl lunged forward and brought the bat down into his head, though the blow was pixelated. Lizzie could practically see the spray of blood. The girl stared down at the body for a moment, face unclear. Then she finally looked up, a mad grin on her face. With a peal of laughter, she lunged away, vanishing from the screen. For a few seconds, the footage was only the corpse set to the sound of her laughter, then it cut out abruptly. Only then did Lizzie realize that she was on her feet and holding her knife. Her reaction had been instinctive and instantaneous. John looked a little concerned and touched her arm. Lizzie.
You're right.
She sat down on the couch beside him and carefully set her knife a few inches out of easy reach. Normally she might be ashamed of herself, but her heart was still beating too rapidly. Lizzie did her best to focus on the broadcast. Remind everyone that the suspect was killed by police at the entrance to the school. Her identity and the identities of the victim are still being withheld for the sake of the families, but if anyone has information concerning... John turned the volume down to a low buzz, then looked toward her. His eyes were hard and serious in a way that normally excited her, but given the circumstances, she was too tense. I know it's early to jump to conclusions, but she
was like me. Yes.
The words felt strange in her mouth, though. This random girl couldn't possibly be like her, not any more than the other girl in their hometown. She didn't know of another way to say it, though, and she trusted John would understand. Not like you, but the way she moved, you don't think that was natural, do you?
No. She used more strength than a normal girl when she swung her bat, and she was almost as fast as me.
In the movements they'd seen during the video at least, which might not reflect her full speed, Lizzie again had the strong urge to eliminate the girl, despite the fact that she was already dead and couldn't possibly harm John. Miss Smith said that there was nothing sinister about it, just experiments gone wrong. But for this to happen here, too.
Remember the meeting? Koichak prefers to rush through testing with multiple simultaneous experiments.
Oh, good memory. I hadn't realized you were listening that closely. Lizzie smiled at him, a little of the tension draining from her. Yes, she was still here beside her John. There was no threat. She needed to quiet her instincts. That didn't mean they were safe, though. There could be much broader threats due to the changes that would happen. She was certain she knew much of the information that would come out about the incident, but after that, it looked like John's thoughts had gone in a similar direction, judging from his frown.
Do you think this will be the end for Koichak? Will this be what they need to bring reform?
To her surprise, John leaned against her and breathed a painful sigh. With emotions running high, she hadn't realized how unhappy he looked. No doubt he was thinking of many unpleasant events. I don't know. Maybe it'll bring down Koichak. Maybe it'll just make things worse. We don't know.
Oh, John.
She held him closer and stroked his hair gently. Fortunately, he did seem to lighten slightly under her ministrations. Menstruations, yeah. Fucking, Jesus, good going me. They sat there together for a while, watching as the news continued. Meaningful information was coming slower now, but that didn't stop the broadcast from trying to stretch things. And since new information did come out occasionally, she felt like she needed to keep watching. Though it shouldn't have gone to her, Lizzie found herself more and more anxious as they continued. What would Koichak do if they felt threatened? Could this be part of some much larger scheme? If not, what would happen to them? The incident with her and John had been suppressed and gotten no media attention, but this was such a public event. Horror slowly crept up within her mind as she imagined an army of Miss Smiths swarming the school around the country, giving out more medication to prevent other such incidents. Parents would probably welcome it. She understood human psychology that much. Somehow, someone like her might have been targeted. Worse, someone like John might have even less chance. Lizzie realized that she was chewing on one of her fingers hard enough to draw blood, only when John gently pulled it from her mouth. It'll be okay, Lizzie. Whatever happens, we'll get through this together. She nodded and hugged him tightly, taking refuge in his embrace. He was right, of course, but only if they devoted their full attention to analyzing the potential risk. They stayed together for a while longer, but it seemed like the broadcast had even less new information now. Despite all the emotion, Lizzie found herself strangely blank. She wasn't sure if she wanted to forget this had happened, or take precautions. Unfortunately, it seemed that John was similarly uncertain, glancing to her just then. So, what do you want to do now? Forget about it for now, search for more information, train to prepare for arrival. Sheesh, I don't really know, honestly. Forget about it for now. Search for more information. Or train to prepare for a rival. I mean, like, I would honestly say maybe, like, forget about it for now. We're going to make this decision, and I think that'll be the end of the episode, FYI. But let's think about this for a second, right? Forget about it for now. If we were to say that, it may not be such a bad idea. You know, we kind of calm down a little bit, get our bearings in order, and we're not acting like on impulse. Same with search for more information. I would also go with that. But train to prepare for arrival. This, like, last game, I think we literally got, like, kidnapped or some shit by Koitek. So it kind of does make me think that, hey, maybe something similar will happen in this story, and we might want to take some precautions, you know? Maybe we just search for more information for now, though. Alright, we will end it there, though. It is a bit of an awkward ending spot, I understand. But this game does not have many good ending spots, I guess. But, yeah, so, I mean, very interesting. I'm glad that I did continue going on with it, though. We got some interesting stuff happening. So it seems that right as we were kind of like, oh yeah, you know, we're going to devote more time to John, then all of a sudden, boom, oh hey, I'm gay. Then she's like, oh wait, maybe I was letting my guard down, maybe this and that. So we've kind of started to tense ourselves up a little bit more. And then boom, this news hits, and it's like, alright, we're going full protection mode kind of deal. So, yeah, that's definitely something right there. But again, I think the biggest thing is just, is it going to end up in a big event that's going to happen to us? Or is it just going to kind of be another false alarm, I suppose? So, that is something to discover in the next episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like on the video and tell me in the comment section below what you'd like to see me play next. If you enjoyed this video or any other videos or series on my channel, then I highly recommend that you hit the subscribe button and turn on post notifications so you'll be notified when those videos comes out. Anyways, that's it from me, and I'll see you in the next one.